Recently, the Washington Post published the ramblings of one Adam Winkler, white guy and trust fund kid of a famous Hollywood producer, who I'd wager never had to worry about his personal security growing up. That's because it's a perk of being a rich kid of Hollywood. Now, Winkler is one of those anti-gun activists who mistakes personal opinion for fact. Winkler doesn't like guns, and despite the fact that his childhood was likely subsidized by the glorification of them in movies like Goodfellas, Winkler can't stand them, and he also can't stand the NRA. After the tragedy in Oregon, Winkler took to the Washington Post and opined that the NRA will end when all of them backwoods hillbillies who have more guns than they have teeth die off. Much in the way that white Democrats pretended during Reconstruction that black Americans had no right to the Second Amendment, Winkler pretends that black Americans or any minority today have no right or interest in the Second Amendment or the NRA. And he writes that because a recent Pew poll shows that white Americans favor gun rights over minority Americans, that the NRA will just cease to exist the moment that whites no longer constitute the larger percentage of the population. Unfortunately for Winkler, another Pew poll from December 2014 shows growing public support for gun rights, specifically that over 54% of black Americans believe that gun ownership actually does more to protect citizens than endanger them, nearly a 50% increase from December of 2012, which measured this sentiment at only 29%. Now, while gun control finds more support amongst black and Hispanic populations than it does white populations, it is, in fact, a shrinking percentage. And even more, as support for gun rights increases with minorities, as the number of law-abiding gun owners increases, violent crime measured between 1993 and 2015 has dropped by half. This from yet another Pew poll. Now, the surprise is that fewer than 12% of Americans are even aware of the low national homicide rate because of people like Adam Winkler. They want to sell Americans an emergency so they can trade a false sense of security for a right. The difficulty for statists has always been how to deprive people of rights without making them aware that you're actually doing such. Anti-gun advocates are desperate to make the NRA all-male and all-white, which is great if you never attended an NRA convention or visited a shooting range, as I did just a week ago, where I was the only white person and half of the 2A practitioners there were women. Now, Winkler betrays his lack of conviction in his own race-baiting article when he later writes, quote, "After the 2012 election, Republican officials said that the party needed to do more to appeal to the growing population of racial minorities. Yet, the party's refusal to bend on gun legislation highlights the difficulty of such efforts. If the GOP compromises on guns to appeal to minorities, it might lose support among its core of white voters." Well, why then is Winkler concerned that those who support gun rights need to appeal to minorities if Second Amendment supporters are, well, just going to die off soon anyway? If cities are full of intelligent anti-Second Amendment advocates, then why are crime rates higher in cities per capita and higher still in areas that boast the most gun control? If Hispanics hate freedom, like firearm ownership, well then why are so many Hispanics fleeing their third world hellholes for the beacon of light that is the United States? See, Winkler inadvertently argues that those demographics, they want to be disarmed. Now, I'm pretty sure that those populations would disagree. Better luck next time, Washington Post.